Morning everyone. So I wanted to just come on today to answer some questions that I get asked really regularly. And this one in particular is about curtains and how you can hang your curtains to make your room look taller and grander and just get a more kind of structured feel to your curtains and I suppose kind of create that hotel room sort of vibe, that kind of feel in your room just by hanging your curtains a little bit differently. So this is something I see all the time. I have a little bit of a bugbear about curtain poles. I don't know why, I just don't like them. So I love to disguise them. And actually, I think by disguising them, that you can achieve a really nice luxurious look, kind of like you would get in a hotel room. So I've given you my top tips and tricks here in this video today. This is all about what a designer would do when they're designing a room and how they would hang curtains to get that really luxurious kind of designed kind of feel to a room. So I hope you find this useful, and as always, if you have other topics you'd like me to discuss, just drop me a DM here on Instagram and I would be more than happy to do it. So hope you all have a great day and I will talk to you soon. Okay guys, so we're going to talk curtains, all things curtains. So I want to talk to you about some simple tips and tricks that I use all the time as an interior designer to make curtains basically work as more than just coverings for windows. So you can see the image I have up here on the screen, and you can see that this person obviously has tried to kind of, bring the height of the window up by having the curtains sit a little bit higher, and they've used this idea of panels. Sort of some curtains at the edges and some in the middle of the window to try and break up the expanse of glass. And all of those theories, I think they're almost there, but there's just a few little tips and tricks that I would use to make this look just really slick, really kind of like a hotel room, and kind of a little bit more grand than it does here, because they have a beautiful window and a beautiful view, and there's just a few simple tweaks that you could make to get this looking really elegant. So the first thing is curtain poles. So this is something that you see, in the vast majority of houses. People hang curtains with curtain poles, and that's totally fine, and like that, the curtains are serving their purpose and covering the windows and all that kind of thing. But I actually think if you can hide those curtain poles, that you're going to get a much smoother, much slicker look, and it's going to give you more of a hotel style look. So I'm going to take you through that. So there's just some examples. Like, look, you see this kind of all the time, the curtain poles, and maybe the curtains tend to fall off them quite often. That's just something that happens. It's such a pain in the backside when it happens, but there's easy ways to kind of hide these curtain poles and or set your curtains up on rails so that they kind of run more smoothly across the window. This is something you see all the time as well, short curtains that don't run the whole way to the floor. Unfortunately, living in this side of the world, living in Ireland or the UK, quite often we do have short curtains on our windows because we have our radiators, our heaters down here, and we think that we can't actually have full-length curtains when we have radiators, but we can, and I'm going to show you how to achieve that. So I want to kind of take you through a before and after of a room, and just to show you what you can do with full-length curtains. So here's a typical dining room, really standard kind of sized windows, dual aspect on this house. Again, they've got the curtain poles up there. They've probably had full-length curtains here at some point, and they have a blind in the window. So the first thing I'm going to say is, by taking curtains and bringing them the whole way up to the ceiling, you create an awful lot more height in the room itself. You pull the eye up, it looks a lot grander and a lot bigger. But then you might be wondering, okay, if you're left with this gap then between the window and the ceiling, it's going to look a bit ridiculous. Where here's how you deal with that, okay? So this is the same room, all right? So there's the before, there's the after. So the same room, what they've done here, what the designer here has done, is that she has taken these curtain panels. I'd say in this case these are not movable curtains, but more like window dressing, but she's taken them the whole way up to the ceiling, as you can see, and then she's put a blind, a Roman blind, so this would be a drop blind. You can see where they fold down and they can drop the whole way down the window to actually cover the window at night, but she's put that blind the whole way up to the ceiling as well. And she's had that mounted there, probably with a rail behind the blind or something like that, but had it mounted flush to the ceiling so that it covers that area. So that area there that we saw between the top of the window and the ceiling, cover that area completely, get rid of that curtain pole, bring your blind down over the top of the window a little bit, over the lip of the window, and run your curtains all the way up to the ceiling. And that's my first kind of what would a designer do type of tip. So that's something that designers do all the time. You'll see it like that in hotels. They really, really make the most of that space above the window, and they don't use curtain poles very often. So that's my first trick. My second trick is this. To hide those curtain poles, what you could do is use a hard fabric pelmet. So I know the idea of pelmets. You say pelmets and people think of the really old-fashioned, you know, kind of foofy sort of things that just gather dust and they're hideous, but pelmets don't have to look like that. So this here, what you're looking at, is kind of really hotel style, typical hotel style window treatments, and you can easily achieve this in your room as well. And again, you can get it with short windows, because you could go for this whole idea of having the blind that you pull down for short windows and just leaving your curtains open if you have a radiator underneath. So that helps you get away with that. But in this case, what they've done is they've lifted the pelmet up really high above the top of the window. It looks like they have a little bit of a blind there as well, above the window, so you can drop the blind to block out a bit of light. And then again, those curtains go up really high above the top of the window. So again, you're elongating that whole window and making it look so much taller and grander. Now, in fairness, this is a pretty tall room, obviously, in a very grand room with the pillars and everything there, the columns rather. So it's a very opulent room anyway, but definitely something like this really helps you get that lovely elegance, I suppose, around your windows. You can see the same thing here. They've used a trim on the pelmet and a same trim on the edge of the curtains. And just make sure your fabrics obviously match as well. And again, those are quite high up, those pelmets. So they're probably, you know, your window probably ends somewhere like here, but you're giving that illusion of height by adding more height to the pelmet. So this here, this image on the left just kind of breaks this look down for you. So you can see how the hard pelmet goes all the way up to the ceiling, which allows you to run the curtain all the way up inside. And you could easily have your curtain pole inside that box pelmet, or a track or something like that inside the box pelmet. This then having a blind or a drop of fabric underneath it allows you to kind of cover even more of that space between the ceiling and the top of the window. So your window could end just here, you know, but you're covering all of that space and you're creating the illusion that you have really tall windows. So you can see it here again. If you don't want to use a pelmet, you could just use the drop of fabric, so your Roman style blinds, to act as window coverings, and actually just use your curtains as panels. So they're not even actually curtains in this case. They're just wall panels of fabric to break up the windows. So you probably have window frames in behind these panels of fabric, but you can block those out by just having essentially wall panels of fabric. And then these are your blinds. They're mounted right up to the ceiling. Again, drop them enough so they cover the top of the window to give that illusion of height. And in this case, if you did have radiators down here, it wouldn't be a problem because you're only closing the blinds. So that's that little trick to get around that. This is another little trick, this idea of using a rail across the top of your window. So again, mounting the rail on the ceiling and having your curtains drop the full height of the room really gives you that great illusion of space. And again, you can play with the idea of blinds in between. If you can't, for any reason, mount a rail to your ceiling, you could always go with this idea, or if you didn't like the pelmet, you could go with this idea of having a little bit of kind of just faux moulding. So essentially this is just a wooden box that has been painted and mounted to your ceiling. and it's made to look like a little bit of molding in the room, or a drop ceiling, and you can certainly put your curtain rail then in behind that, and that covers, again, you could have that a little bit deeper, and that covers that entire curtain pole, you know, so that it just looks so much more luxurious and looks like a hotel room, to be honest. So that's essentially that idea. If you did want to use, if you still want to use curtain poles, if you want to do this kind of a little bit more cheaply, and you have curtain poles in your house already, but you just want to basically kind of get the same effect, but without having to put in a pelmet or a piece of molding or anything like that, what you can do is, a little trick is, paint your curtain pole the same colour as the wall that's sitting behind it. So in this case, you have a white wall, white curtain pole, and that basically means that the curtain pole just disappears. So you can imagine there how different this would look if this was like a brass or a chrome or a black curtain pole or something going across the wall. It'd just stand out and look a little bit cheap or something. So just by painting that curtain pole the exact same colour as the wall behind it, you get this, basically the effect of the curtain pole disappearing, and like you just have kind of curtain panels. They look like they're suspended onto a rail or something like that. So it just, again, it's a cheap way to overcome that problem, and just add a little bit more of a luxurious kind of elegant look to your windows. So those are my tips and tricks around curtains and around kind of creating a more luxurious kind of look and feel in your room through the use of curtains and pelmets and curtain panels, and disguising those curtain poles to achieve this very hotel style elegant kind of look with your window dressings. So I hope that helped. They're my what would a designer do tips for today, and as always, if you have any more topics that you'd like me to cover, please just drop me a DM, and the most popular topics, I would be more than happy to cover those topics for you. And like that as well, if you want to book a consultation for your own house to see how you could, you know, improve a space or a room, or maybe change a layout, or whatever it is you're looking to do, you can book a consultation on whatwouldAdesignerdo.com. So that's it for today. Thanks guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon.